everyone, my name is Frank Song and I'm the founder of Modern Career Advice. And so in order to understand how to land offers for the exact roles you actually want to do, or land a job at a company that will actually treat you well, respect your hard work, and has tons of opportunity for growth and promotion, or at the very least, land a job that will pay you what you actually deserve to be paid, all right? Now, in order to accomplish all of that, you have to first understand the fundamental postulate of a career, okay? Which is this: a career is truly a financial asset, okay? It exemplifies the same characteristic of a financial asset. For example, assets can be bought and sold in a market with buyers and sellers. Your skills, knowledge, and time can be bought by a company and sold by you, right? And not to get too technical here, but assets generally produce cash flow years into the future so that you can discount that cash flow to present value, right? Your career will produce cash flow years into the future so you can discount all of your future earnings to determine a present value, right? And last, assets have real value so that you can borrow against it and or lend it out and receive cash, right? Same thing here. You can borrow money from people and institutions and back it with the cash flow that you're going to produce from your asset known as your career, and or you can lend it out to others and receive cash for it, okay? Your career actually exemplifies the exact same characteristics of when you buy an investment property, okay? It is no different than if you were to buy a house and rent it out to somebody and receive cash for it every single year that it's rented, all right? That's no different than your career, where you rent out your skills, your knowledge, your capability, and your time and receive cash for it every single year. It just so happens that this happens to be a bit of a more of an active asset class than the other, okay? Now that you understand that a career is truly a financial asset, the following logic tree now splits into the question of, is the market for this asset an efficient or inefficient market, okay? Inefficient markets, for example, like the stock market, there are a ton of buyers and sellers, okay? These are highly liquid markets, so assets get bought and sold very often, in this case, multiple times a second, right? Third is, there's a ton of information available to both buyers and sellers to allow them to make educated decisions. Like in the stock market, the companies must release information by law so that buyers and sellers have the same information, and there's people who spend their whole lives writing reports about just one company, right? And fourth is, there is a low transaction cost, okay? The cost to buy or sell a stock is anywhere between $2.50 to $10, right? And fifth is, most importantly, the balance of power in the market is relatively equal, okay? Both buyers and sellers are powerful in this market. Now, with that being the understanding, now we have to understand that there are really two kinds of value, okay? The first is intrinsic value, okay? Intrinsic value is the true underlying value of what something is worth, okay? Now, the second kind of value is called market value. And market value is the price that the market is currently willing to pay for that asset, okay? Now, what's very, very interesting in highly efficient markets is that market value, the price that people are willing to pay in the market, is generally a good reflection of the true intrinsic value of the asset, okay? Said differently, in efficient markets, people are right now paying the price of what something is really worth, okay? That's why it's so difficult to make money in the stock market and why it's hard to find undervalued companies, okay? Now, converse this to the other side of the spectrum, which are highly inefficient markets, right? For example, the job market, right? 1, there are few buyers and sellers of your skills, okay? 2, it is a very illiquid market. You don't switch jobs, companies every day, multiple times a day, right? Third is, there is very little information available to both buyers and sellers, and huge asymmetric information gaps exist, right? Fourth is, there are high transaction costs associated with buying and selling this asset, right? The average cost to recruit, hire, and train is $4,000. And last is, the balance of power in this market, in the job market, is very unequal, okay? Where companies who are the buyers have way more power in the market than you and I as job seekers, okay? So what ends up happening in highly inefficient markets is something really interesting, is that the market value, the price that people are willing to pay currently in the market, moves away from the true intrinsic value of what it should be worth, okay? Said differently, it is a common occurrence in inefficient markets for people to be underpaid in the job market from what they're truly worth, or get stuck in roles that don't maximize or showcase your capabilities, or be stuck at crappy jobs or companies, or be unemployed for long periods of time, okay? So what you're going to learn is what is actually directly causing that valuation gap, okay? And learn the correct job search strategies in order to solve that valuation gap and get to your intrinsic value, and finally get you to the role, company, and pay package that you deserve to have. So let's just jump right into it. Let's not waste any time, okay? So if you can imagine, I get asked about career advice pretty often, and people generally expect me to start talking about resumes and cover letters or something like that, right? But the first thing that I do is I actually start by asking that person a question, which is, walk me through your workflow on how you're looking for a job. And the answer I usually get goes something like this, which is, oh yeah, so Frank, I go to my Dropbox or my C drive and I pull up my folder that says resume on it, and I start updating the latest version of my resume with my responsibilities and my accomplishments, and then start writing in some action-oriented verbs and putting in numbers and percentages. And then I start building out my LinkedIn profile and networking, and then I'm usually like, whoa. That's great and all, but can I ask you a very simple question real quick? And you say, okay. Why did you write a resume? And this is when people start to look at me completely confused because they've never been asked that question before. And when they start to realize that I really expect a response to that question, the answer usually goes, because I had to. And that gets me to the first problem, okay? Everyone that I talk to always says, because I had to. They're going about this in a highly process-oriented fashion and just following the steps without any understanding why they're doing what they're doing. And anytime you do things without understanding the whys or the fundamentals, then you're going to fail, okay? That goes for anything in life, but is especially true when you're trying to land the best offers, okay? So if you're going to be successful in this process, you need to deeply understand the fundamentals. Now, the second problem is this, which is that people are always asking me things like, how do I get more interviews? Or how do I get more offers? Or how do I make my resume better, right? And the problem is that they're asking me the wrong question, all right? Think about it like this. When you go to the doctor's office, the doctor spends 90% of his or her time diagnosing the problem and deeply understanding that problem, okay? They're not spending all of their time suggesting a solution. However, I feel that everyone in the career space are like drug addicts who just want to know the answer. Like, they're so focused on reading that blog post that says 5 magic things to put on your resume, or 10 body language cues to pick up in an interview, or say these 6 magic words and you'll be able to negotiate your offer. And the problem is that people are so focused on finding a quick fix solution that they never stop to understand what their actual real problem is, all right? And when you don't deeply understand the actual problem, then you can never develop a solution against it, all right? That sounds logical to me. So the format of what we're going to go through is that we're going to start with the basics and then move to the more advanced concepts, and very quickly, might I add, okay? And we're going to also start by first deeply understanding our actual problem so that when we get to the solution part, you'll understand exactly how the solution counteracts the problem, because that's the whole point of a solution, right? Okay. So with that being said, let's start with basic problem, okay? So what is it that we're trying to accomplish here, all right, from a very basic sense? We're trying to land a job, right? Okay. That's the target, all right? Now, with that being the understanding that that's the target, let's take one small logical baby step backwards. And in order to start a new job, what is something that we need every single time before we start that job? An offer letter, right? Okay. Nothing earth-shattering yet. All right. Now that we understand that before we start a job, we need an offer letter, let's take another logical baby step back and think to ourselves, okay, well, if we need an offer letter, what agreement is being made in that offer letter between us and the employer? And this is where people say, Frank, I'm going to work for the company and they're going to pay me some money. Okay, great. Now, here's the thing. If I was to not change the meaning of that, but just tighten up the language, would it be fair to say that you are providing a service in exchange for financial compensation? And people go, yeah, dude, that's exactly what I meant to say. I go, okay. Now, here's the important question. That definition that I just repeated, I just ripped out of the dictionary, okay? So if I asked you to go to the dictionary and tell me what word that definition falls under, what would it be? Now, here's the thing. I've asked that question thousands upon thousands of times, and I've never had anyone get it right, okay? And that's a very important implication here, which is we've only gotten to step 3 out of 1,000, and people already can't answer what their problem is, okay? We've barely gotten off the ground. This is only 3 steps in, and nobody can answer that question. So it's not surprising to me why people are failing at landing the jobs that they truly deserve, okay, and getting to their intrinsic value. The answer is sales, okay? But hold on, okay? By just saying that you have a sales problem is a very, very, very incorrect statement, okay? I hate it when people say stuff like, hey, finding a job's all about selling yourself, or hey, you gotta market yourself better, or you gotta develop your personal brand, or you have to develop some unique selling propositions about yourself, or you have to tell your background and have it sound like a narrative or a story, or you have to have these concrete examples and highlight your accomplishments in an elevator pitch and tell them how they're gonna benefit, right? All those statements are highly, highly, highly incorrect statements, and those statements are the exact reason of what's holding you back from landing the offers that you truly deserve, okay? So, with that being the understanding, let's now go further into the logic and deeply understand why that is, okay, and why those statements are holding you back, okay? So the first thing that we have to take into consideration is the price point of the sale, okay? What's more difficult to sell? $5 Girl Scout cookies or a $100,000 Audi, okay? Said differently, at which price point does a buyer spend more mental energy scrutinizing the decision, and at what price point does the buyer become more sophisticated? Clearly, as you scale price linearly, the buyer spends more mental energy scrutinizing the decision, and the buyer universe becomes much more sophisticated, okay? Now, what is the price point of what you're trying to sell? I don't know. How much you trying to make? $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, $150,000, $250,000? And here's the thing. I'm assuming you don't want that as a one-time payment, right? I'm assuming you want that over multiple years. Am I not correct? So you're easily making a multi-$100,000 to a multi-million-dollar sale, right? So you best believe that the buyers at that price point in the market are highly sophisticated, and they spend a lot of mental energy scrutinizing the transaction. And there's no such thing as an easy sale, okay? Now, the second thing that we have to take into consideration now is the size of the target market, okay? Let's just say you were a salesperson at Audi, okay? I know for a fact in North America alone, Audi sells about 200,000 vehicles every single year, all right? So if you were a salesperson at Audi and you made a sale, is it a big deal? No, not really. There's still 199,999 people left to sell too, right? Now, converse that to if you messed up a sale, is it a big deal? No, not really. There's still 199,999 people left to sell too, right? Now converse that to the size of your target market, okay? How many companies today have the financial needs, means, and resources to pay $50,000 to $250,000 plus on the exact services that you want to provide? I don't know. Nationwide, maybe 200 to 500. That's being generous, okay? But that's not really your true target market. We have to take a subsegment of that, which are companies that are located in the places that you want to work. Because I'm sure you're not just willing to relocate to any place. So now we've whittled the buyer universe down to about 100 to 200 buyers, right? But that's not really your target market either. We have to take a subsegment of that, which are companies that have the right pay, the right role, the right prestige, the right team, the right everything that you ever want in a company, right? And now we've whittled down to 50 to 100 buyers. And that's, again, being super generous, okay? And here's the thing. If you want to work at the top companies, it gets even worse, okay? For example, if you want to work at a Big Four accounting firm, how many Big Fours are there? There's 4, right? So if you messed up a sale, is it a big deal? Yeah, there's only 3 left, okay? And if you want to work at a bulge bracket investment bank, there's only 8. If you want to work at a top-tier consulting firm, there's only 5. The point is that you have an extraordinarily small target market, okay? And when you have such a small target market, you can't just churn your way to success. You can't mess up a sale with one of these buyers and be like, oops, I'll get it next time. Because when you have a small target market, there may be no next time, okay? These are very high stakes sales. Now, the third thing that we have to take into consideration is the complexity of the sales cycle, okay? There are 2 variables that controls the complexity of the sales cycle. The first variable is number of decision makers needed to make a buying decision, okay? At one end of that spectrum are simple sales cycles, where there is one decision maker needed to make a buying decision, all right? For example, when you go to the Apple store, you are the only decision maker that needs to sign off on the transaction for the sale to go through. All right. Now converse that to exponentially more complex sales cycles where there are 3 to 8 decision makers that are needed to make a buying decision. Okay. Now, second variable is this: number of evaluation points needed before the buyer makes a buying decision, okay? Again, at one end of that spectrum are simple sales cycles where there is one evaluation point needed for the buyer to make a buying decision, okay? Again, using the Apple example, if you were to go in, look at the iPhone and say, buy or no buy, you make your decision then and there, okay? Now converse that to where there are 3 to 8 evaluation points before a buyer is ready to make a buying decision. Those are exponentially more complex sales cycles, okay? Now, here's the thing. For organizational purposes, I've made a chart right here that plots all of the sales cycles based on those variables, okay, to show it to you visually. So here's the thing. Why are we talking about any of this? What does any of this have anything to do with finding a job? Why are we going through this mental gymnastics? The reason is because when I said that it's a highly, highly, highly incorrect statement and is a statement that causes you issue in your job search when people say, hey, finding a job is all about selling yourself, or you got to market yourself better, develop your personal brand. The reason why I said that is because the people who make that statement believe that all sales are created equal, okay? They did not take into account all the variables that we just went through, okay? And to compound that problem, those people who make those statements, their only exposure are to salespeople in the simple sales cycle, right? Because who do we interact with in sales? That salesperson at the AT&T store, right? Or that guy who's trying to sell us insurance, or that real estate agent, or that salesperson at Macy's, or that person at the dealership trying to sell us that new car, right? Those are the people that we interact with. So what ends up happening is that people start pegging landing a job in the simple sales cycle, okay? However, that is wrong in every way, shape, and form possible, okay? Landing a job is not a simple sales cycle, okay? It's actually one of the most complex sales on earth and is actually synonymous with enterprise technology sales cycles, okay? Let's take a great example of an enterprise technology company that we all know, Oracle, okay? Now, does Oracle sell cheap $10 routers that we buy at Best Buy? Or are they selling super expensive multi-$100,000, multi-million-dollar technology stacks? High price point. Interesting. Okay. Now, are they selling that to the 313 million Americans and small businesses in the United States? Or are they selling that to a very small target market of Fortune 1000, Fortune 100 large enterprises? Small target market. Interesting. Now let's take into account their sales cycle, okay? So what ends up happening in enterprise sales cycles is that a buyer, such as Procter & Gamble, issues something called an RFP, which stands for Request for Proposal, okay? Which basically outlines all of the specifications that they're looking for in the technology that they're looking to buy, okay? Then Oracle responds in writing to their request for proposal, all right? Then if they make it past that, then what ends up happening is that Oracle has a preliminary conversation with one or two team members over at Procter & Gamble to discuss the proposal, all right? Then if they make it past that round, then they meet with the technology team over at Procter & Gamble and they do what's called a tech demo and demonstrate the product, okay? Then if they make it past that round, then what ends up happening is that Oracle is going to meet with the finance team and the management team to discuss now, does this solution make financial or business sense, right? Then at the very end, Procter & Gamble has a final meeting where people from the finance team, the tech team, the senior management, and all the other people who are involved in this get into a room and they vote on who to buy. That sounds a little familiar to me, right? A company issuing an RFP is just like a company putting up a job posting, right? And a resume is just a response to that RFP. And then when you make it past that round, then you speak with one constituent of buyers, which is really the HR team or the recruiters, to discuss your resume. Then if you make it past that round, then you meet with another constituent of buyers, which is really your potential coworkers or your direct supervisors. Then if you make it past that round, then you do an in-person meeting where you start meeting with the senior team members and maybe people from adjacent departments. And at the very end of it all those people get into a room, the HR team, your peers, your direct supervisors, the senior people, and the people from the adjacent departments, they all get into a room and they vote on who to hire. So again, why did we spend any time talking about any of this? What does any of this have anything to do with finding a job? I want to be explicitly clear why we talked about any of this, because if the following point is not understood, then no matter what you learn from here on out, it will not be effective, okay? So, the reason why we talked about any of this is because based on those variables, low price point versus high price point, large target market versus small target market, and the complexity of the sales cycle, okay? Based on those variables that we just went through, okay, dictates which strategies are effective and which are not, all right? Said differently, the strategies that are effective in simple and intermediate sales cycles are not effective in enterprise sales cycles, all right? Let me give you an example. Let's take infomercials as a great example, okay? They sell something that's at a low price point, generally between $10 to $20. Then they have a large target market, right? They sell to consumers like you and I. And then there's one decision maker that needs to make a buying decision, right? We just need to pick up the phone and buy. And there's really one evaluation point. We're ready to make a buying decision at the point of seeing that infomercial. Now, the strategies that are highly effective in increasing conversion rates in that market are, hey, buy one, get one free. Hey, buy now, save 20% off. Hey, watch out, in 30 minutes, we're taking the deal away, right? So, if the logic was true that all sales are created equal, then why don't you use those strategies that are effective in making sales there and go into your hiring manager or the HR person and say, hey, hire me now and you can hire my friend for free, right? Or, hey, I'll give you 20% off my salary if you hire me now. Or, hey, I'm going in 30 minutes, so you better make me an offer. Of course not. So you have to understand that if you don't understand enterprise sales, you will fail, okay? And here's the best part about enterprise sales, which is no one is starting with an advantage in enterprise sales. And the reason being is that succeeding in enterprise sales is a learned skill, okay? It's not something that you're just born with. So it doesn't matter if you're tall or you're good looking or you're charming or you're popular or you're cool or anything like that, all right? All of those are superficial and really helpful in simple sales, but are not rewarded in enterprise sales cycles, all right? Enterprise sales rewards people who are strategic, who are tactical, who are analytical, and who are calculating, all right? These are learned skills, which is why it's so important to understand the fundamentals and use the proper technique when in the enterprise sales cycle. So it doesn't matter if you're extroverted or introverted, all right? Your advantage is gained or lost based on how well you understand the following strategies. So if you don't understand enterprise sales, you will fail. All right, now let's get into another very important topic that I get asked a lot about, which is the costs and consequences associated with having a bad job, okay? So let's just define what a bad job is. A bad job is one of the following, if not multiple of the following. One, a bad job is one that insults your intelligence, okay? And that you can go to work doing your job on autopilot. A bad job is when you're at a company where there's no growth opportunities and nobody respects your talents, okay? A bad job is when you're being underpaid from what you deserve to be paid, and you're looking at all your peers or people who work at the same roles at different companies get paid way more than you, okay? A bad job is one that makes you question why you even went to school to do what you're doing. And a bad job is one that's in an industry that you don't even want to work in. And a bad job is one when you question how you ended up working with the coworkers that you're working with, all right? And here's the thing. Anytime that you are in a bad job, the problem with that is that there are actually huge qualitative and quantitative costs associated with having a bad job, all right? So let's explore the qualitative side first, okay? Anytime that you're in a bad job, the qualitative cost of it is that a bad job is actually synonymous with having cancer, all right? For example, when you first get cancer in stage 1, you have the best chances of beating that cancer, right? Then in stage 2, it gets worse. Then in stage 3, it gets even worse, all right? And then once you've hit stage 4 cancer, you've pretty much reached a point of no return, okay? The cancer becomes so terminal that some doctors just tell you to get your affairs in order, all right? The problem is that exact same thing happens in your career, okay? It's much easier to pivot and transition early on in your career, okay? But then the later and later your career gets, the harder and harder it becomes to solve, all right? And eventually there gets to a point of no return, okay? Now, here's the thing. If you found out you had cancer today, would you say something like, "Oh, yeah, let's just see how the cancer grows. I'm not feeling really sick right now. I'll try it out for a year and see if anything actually happens." No, of course not, right? You're going to say, "Get that cancer out of me right now," okay? The problem is that what I find is that people in their careers let their situation of having a bad job grow and grow and grow. And they make excuses like, "Well, I hate the company, but I like my coworkers," or "I hate the pay, but I love the company." And they keep making excuses until one day it's too late and they realize that the bad job has now become a very big cancer to their careers. And when they finally get around to trying to solve their problem and trying to transition to the role or the company or the pay scale that they felt that they deserved the whole time, what ends up happening is that they realize that they're in a terrible situation, okay? The point is, every day, every month, every year that passes that you're in a bad job makes it exponentially harder to land the role that you want or work at the company that you want or get paid what you actually deserve, okay? Just like how every minute that passes makes it that much harder to defeat cancer, okay? That's why if you look at my clients and I's backgrounds, we moved at a frenetic pace because we knew that every moment that we were not in the role or the company or the pay scale that we knew that we deserved, every moment that passed was decreasing our chances of ever getting to the role or the company or the pay scale that we deserved, okay? So now let's get into the quantitative cost associated with the problem, all right? So the difference between a good and a bad job is really $903,400. Okay, so now let me explain to you the logic behind how I even got to this number so that you could pull up an Excel spreadsheet yourself and calculate the exact same thing. And it goes something like this. Have you guys ever seen a game of pickup basketball before? You know, when 10 people show up at a basketball court, then out of those 10 people, there are 2 team captains, right? Then each of those team captains goes back and forth, choosing people from the remaining 8, right? So now, if I was standing 200 feet away and I had never, ever seen any of them play basketball before, what could I infer about the last 2 people that have yet to be picked? That they must suck, right? Obviously. Now, here's the problem, is that when you're at a bad job, you are signaling the exact same things to employers. So let's get into a scenario where somebody gets a good job, like somebody who gets picked first in basketball, and give that person a salary of, let's say, $50,000, right? And let's compare that with somebody who gets a bad job, like somebody who gets picked last in basketball, with a salary of, let's just say, $40,000, all right? Now, most people would say, oh, a $10,000 difference? That's not that big of a deal. No, that's a huge, huge, huge deal. That's a big deal. The reason is because if you aggregate that $10,000 difference from the beginning of your career and grow it to the Social Security retirement age of 67, and you take into account the 2.9% average raise you get every single year, that sums to be $903,400. And look, no matter how many different ways you chop up the numbers, it's still going to amount to a ton of money, all right? And that's why I fight for every last dollar, okay? The earnings over my lifetime is what matters, all right? Because I have friends who say, hey, Frank, it's $1,000. What's the big deal? And I say, no, screw you. It's $100,000, okay? Because what you have to understand is that when you're in a career, what do companies base your raise off of? How much you made the year before, right? And what did those companies base the raise before that off of? How much you made the year before that, right? So you have to take into consideration the lifetime value, all right? And some people are so short-sighted and think that $1,000 isn't a lot of money. But it's the increase in maximum lifetime earnings that matter. Because I assume if you're watching this, you care about making as much money as possible in your lifetime and not in 1 year. So every dollar does matter. So I don't know about you, but I still have plenty of things to do with that extra $100,000 in my lifetime, all right? That's why I fight for every penny and every extra $1,000 in pay for myself and all my clients, okay? Now, here's a pop quiz that integrates everything that we've learned thus far, all right? Who gets the extra $1 million? It's the person that best manages the enterprise sales cycle, okay? Now, does it all make sense why we talked about all of this? Going back to the beginning of this conversation where we talked about you being undervalued from your intrinsic value because the job market is highly inefficient, The undervaluation is occurring because of your inability to manage the enterprise sales cycle. That's why you have to understand enterprise sales. How well or not well you manage that enterprise sales cycle will determine if you will ever get to your intrinsic value or not. And more specifically, how well you understand and execute on the following strategies will determine if you will ever solve your enterprise sales problem and get to your intrinsic value and solve that undervaluation issue, okay? And finally get paid what you deserve in a role that uses all of your talents and at a company that will finally appreciate you. All right, so that's it for today, guys. Now, you should have a very deep and clear sense of what your actual problem is and what's at stake here, okay? So in the next videos that are going to come up, we're going to get into the solution portion that combats the enterprise sales problem that you have, okay? And learn the proper techniques and strategies to landing multiple offers for the roles that you want with the pay packages that you deserve and at the companies with the most growth opportunities, okay? So take care for now, and I'll see you guys soon, all right?